Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of The Greatest Profession Podcast. And this is part 2 of 2, and with my conversation with Laura Bailey. And part 1 was released on Monday, so this is our kind of second conversation. If you don't have to listen to one to listen to the other if you don't want to. They're kind of disparate, but I really enjoy this conversation. So go ahead, if you haven't listened to that one, scoot on back a skosh and take a listen. But without further ado, here is my second part of the conversation with Laura Bailey.
Hey, what's going on over there? Am I missing out? Oh, it's nothing, okay. Cool.
One of the things is that, like, as a practice owner, I mean, that's even more of your life that is now sucked into it. I mean, because, even during time here, like we talked about, what's next for the business, which, by the way, I love because it's like I'm like an armchair philosopher.
Well, that's our love language, Matt.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so like as a practice owner, I mean, it's like even more of your life, which, I mean, one of the questions is like, what was that like? I mean, you bought a practice a lot earlier than you wanted to buy a practice. And I remember that there was a lot of trepidation around it. Yeah. And I was like, just do it. You gotta, like, you have all the skills you need. But how did that go?
Oh, that's fun. Okay. So owning a practice is by far like the best thing we could have ever done. It is the most stressful thing, but like I'm kind of a bitch. So like, it's very good for me to be my own boss. It just is. Like, I did really well with my previous boss, but like ultimately, my personality. It's better for me to be my own boss. But I think you're talking about things you can control again. Yeah. So like the things that I really focus on or feel are priorities in vet med are like obviously patient care, but like the culture of a practice is something that we don't do enough about, but the focus on that has changed the game at my practice. I mean, you've worked there, my team, they're learning, in a small town, we don't have any licensed techs. We're putting several of them through school, trying to get that to happen, but they're just not available in rural North Carolina. Yeah. Coastal may it be, but it may be, but they, the loyalty in my staff, both my loyalty to them and their loyalty to us. I mean, you've seen it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, these guys will stand in front of a car for us. Like, they're fantastic. And that wasn't an accident. Like, we've worked really hard to make this environment tolerable. Again, I affect the things I can affect. Mm-hmm. And so, I have a lot of theories on staff management, but that's because my, Clayton, my husband, is the other practice owner, and he's like really financially driven. I can focus my efforts on HR and team management and hiring and firing and all of these things without, like, he can focus on the other stuff. And so that's made it easier to focus on the culture. And so because of that, I think that we have a good work environment. I have really good retention. All but one of my staff members, like, I had one left because it just wasn't a good fit. Like, she was a new hire. She got really stressed out up front. But everybody else has left because of life. Got pregnant and like not working anymore, moved away. One of them went to be a firefighter, but I went to her graduation. So cool. It's so important to me that we have this retention and this good relationship. Like, I want it to be a good place to work. Yeah. I want to put my staff first. And I think that helps me feel better. It makes my patients safer, and it makes this miserable career a lot less miserable, that I can laugh, or that if I'm upset, it alarms my staff. Like, if I'm having a bad moment, they'll either cry with me or they like feel the need to be very protective, and they do protect us a lot. And we don't give staff enough credit for this, but like our receptionists or our CSRs, like, they're our bodyguards, right? Like they protect my doctors all the time. Like, they put up a wall. They don't make us deal with this crap. If we have a really crappy client that like wants to talk our ear off or is just, a jerk, the staff will handle them so we don't have to if we're trying to deal with some actual medical issue, things that really should be focused on. And so, man, I went on a tangent there, but I like really think staff culture, that is the best part of owning a practice for me, is that I can control that. And that I have the ability to fire clients who should be fired, which I don't do lightly, but it's the best I can do, you know?
It seems like a lot of that looks like for you, you know, having relationships with people outside of work as well. I mean, just being in that practice and then talking to you about it, it seems like, I mean, it's like a family. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys are all on the same page. There's a lot of transparency that happens in that clinic. And then you do stuff outside. It's not like a transactional relationship. It's a relationship.
Yeah. You know, I found, like, this is like my favorite story. I offered my staff their Christmas party this year. I was like, whatever y'all want to do. The year before, we had like catered and taken them to a bowling alley arcade thing and paid for all this stuff. And then I came to your house for this friend party after.
Where drunk Laura just cried.
Cried because you were moving away. Yeah. Not my finest. Lindsay cried with me, though.
That's true. But I wrote 9 songs during which the entire, like each song,
I just
it was
cried
just
more.
Laura crying. I'm like, these are supposed to be fun.
They were fun. I was just having a moment. But so this year, this year I offered my staff, I was like, oh, well, whatever y'all want. Do you want to do that? Do you want to go out to dinner? And they freaking requested to go to my house and have a Christmas movie watching party.
Nice.
Just so they could all hang out.
Yeah.
And it was so cheap. We had like this Greek restaurant cater.
Nice.
And we baked a bunch of cookies and did a cookie decorating contest that was very disturbing. And we watched movies like by the fire, and like it was awesome and simple, but that's what they chose. I would have done anything for them, but they just wanted us all to get to be together with no time constraints.
Right.
And so we do a lot of that stuff. We also do quarterly goals. So as you know, you're talking about transparency. I think that's important too for staff culture. So our staff knows what we make every day. We're working on showing them more about how much we spend as well, so they understand that it's not like when we make this money, you know, McQuitty and I are just rolling out on our, you know, like, here's how much we spend versus how much we make, and here's why, you know, when you guys are being wasteful or I'm being wasteful, it's a big deal. Or when we are like, no, don't charge for that.
Right.
Like, that's a big deal.
Right.
And so, but they have access to the daily numbers, the annual numbers, quarterly numbers. We discuss all of that openly. We have daily goals. So like if our staff hits a certain amount, and it's gone up over the years, then I take them all out for drinks, like for a drink that week. And they love it. We have this stupid dancing money man, and it's like a whole thing. You get to push the button if we hit this certain amount. Right. We hit it last week. It's been a little bit because we slowed down in March. And so they're so excited. And so they become invested in what we're doing because they get rewards. So like if we hit our annual goal, we did the first year, we take them all, we like shut the practice down for a day and take everybody to a cabin. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And so like we're all jonesing for this cabin trip. We didn't get our goal. We missed it by like, bless their hearts, $60,000 last year. We were so close. Yeah. But they're all in it. Yeah. So we're constantly talking about where are we in the year? Yeah. What do we need to do? And so then on top of that, I do quarterly goals. Some of them are financial, some of them are health goals. Right now we're working on getting reviews because we are in a tourist town, so that's important. Right. But like we'll do like annual blood work goals. And the amount these guys will kick it up when we set new goals. And then because we've set like we're selling blood work goal, our overall amount of blood work has gone up because we created this habit for a quarter. Right. And so that's been awesome. So they get like an award or a reward, which I'm behind. I owe them a t-shirt. If you're out there, guys, I'm working on it. But they get bonuses, or they get parties. I think we're going to go to do tactical laser tag if we get the 5-star review award. And then like if they get the stretch goal, they get a gift card. Like, I see. And so that kind of stuff it's really fun. Yeah. And so we keep account of it and we talk about it at our monthly staff meetings. And like, we don't talk about people's salaries, of course, but like everything else in the practice, I'm wide open. I think it seems to be going well for us, and it also makes them more invested. And like, if we like have a really good year, I try to make sure that they get rewarded, whether that be in raises or bonuses or, gear or whatever. We try to make sure that there's like a trickle down effect. And our policy is, if the practice does well, you're going to do well. And so it seems to work. I guess they drank the Kool-Aid because they're still there.
Well, it also sounds like, though, in talking to you about that stuff, that it's related to purpose as well. Like, it's related to, like, why are we doing these things? Because it's not like, it's never been like hey, do you want to make that a large fry? Do you want a soft drink? It's not like any of that. It's always like, things that legitimately are good medicine. And, like, you teach them what that is, and they're on board, and then they...
Yeah, and that's... we talked about this yesterday. We had to do a price increase because we were using Profit Solver to like show where we needed to do it. And the conversation between us was, the staff has to be on board and agree to these changes because they're the ones who are having the conversations with the owners. So like when we're talking about our blood work goal, we had a dog come in that was like 2 years old and she had like a weird mild azotemia. Turns out she had like renal aplasia and like all these things we would have never seen.
Cool.
But because we caught it so early and were able to put her on a renal diet, that dog's life expectancy went from very short to almost a normal expectancy. And I'm like, we would have missed this until it was too late and this dog was sick. And I was like, you never know when that's going to be the case. And so I try to make sure, one, I'm a terrible salesperson. Well, actually, I'm a great salesperson, but I really, really, really don't like to take people's money. It's like a weakness. I'm like I'm part of the problem, so I let Clayton handle the money. But so like you said, we try to have intent. I don't want to just upsell things. I don't want to be a used car salesman. I want to do what's best for my patients. I want to charge appropriately for it, and I want my staff to be on board. Then they do most of the educating, which is why we do our monthly training with those staff meetings so that they know what all these vaccines do. We'll go through and talk about each medication with a new staff member so they know why I'm reaching for that. And they catch mistakes because of it. Like, they know that carprofen's twice a day. So if I write it down for once a day and it's not like a really high number, they ask me about it. And they catch me all the time with that kind of stuff. And we try to tell them why we're doing a procedure and make sure that they understand and are not just robots working for us, because it's that priming the pump thing where they tell the client about it, then we come in and back it up. We're all on the same page, and I think it's been really good for our clients and our patients and the staff. Yeah. But I'm biased, right? Yeah. It's my staff. I think they're the greatest people on the planet. I'm super proud of them. So I like to brag about them.
Why not salaries? You said, of course, not salaries.
Just because I think that that's a personal thing. Like, everybody's pretty similar. We try to pay really fair, but like, I don't want somebody to know one person's hourly versus another, because there's always, there's other reasons, right? Yeah. Like, I don't want to have to break down with somebody that like this person is being paid more because of this, that, and the other. And we try to do merit-based raises with some like longevity. I mean, loyalty is important, but I don't think that's how you encourage people. Like if somebody's being paid more, like I have some 10s and I have some 7s, and I don't want my 7s. Like, I feel like that would be demoralizing to see that the 10s were being paid more. Like, I know that the idea would be it's encouraging. Like, you work harder, you'll get there. But I actually don't think that that's how it feels. Right. I want to use other things. Like, we try to hype people up. We do a survey with each new staff member that asks how they like to be praised, so that we can do that, whether it be they like to be privately taken aside or they like that in front of people hype.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because I hate being praised in public.
So we ask. That's part of our survey. We ask about their pronouns. We ask how they like to be praised. We try to get a list of like their favorite snacks and stuff. And so we can find ways to reward them separately. We're weird, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then I also, if we're talking about staff culture, the other thing that has been, I think, maybe one of the best things our practice has done is the way we hire. And we're not the only ones that do it this way, but we like do an interview, and if we, with the managers and me, and if we like the person, we have them come in for an observation day, which they get paid for if they get hired. And they come in and we basically are like interact with the staff. And like whatever position they're applying for, they'll spend the majority of the day, but we still have them go, like if they're applying for the assistant position, we'll still have them spend like an hour in kennels and an hour up front, just so they see how the practice runs, but also interact with the whole crew. And then at the end of the day, once they leave, we let the staff vote yes or no. And we don't give an opinion at all. I let the staff completely have like carte blanche decision-making power. And thus far, they've been unanimous every time, yes or no. And they're a pretty forgiving group. And if they have said no, like even if I thought it was a great interview, then I won't hire them. Because it doesn't matter if I like them. They have to be invested. They're doing the training, and it's how you avoid clickiness, right? Like you pick this person. So if they suck, we're all in this together. Versus like at my previous job, it's like the stork bringing the baby. Like these people just emerge in the practice and are like, hello, now you're expected to accept me and train me. And I'm like, well, who are you?
Right.
And that has been really good. And also it's the whole idea that the staff they're not just employees, right? Like they are part of our practice. And so they have decision-making power there. So those are my philosophies.
Yeah. When you first bought your practice, there was a lot of trepidation about like the entire thing. And over the course of time, like you've definitely leaned into it and there's a lot of excitement that happens with it. But like, I mean, I know that you thought that you weren't ready. Yes, it turns out that you were, but like, how did you handle the fear bit? Because at some point you had to say yes, despite being afraid you weren't going to be able to succeed.
So first off, I think it helps that I did this with my husband. And so there's that being alone part was out, which is good because I obviously don't thrive in alone.
Right.
Like,
you and I, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So having him was really helpful. And then, Michael was already down there and like he was a really nice support system to have somebody to talk to about these things.
Right.
We had you to talk to. So I had a good support system. And I'm kind of the gas in our relationship where Clayton's definitely the brake. So as a general, I'm like, let's do it. I'm scared, but if we don't do it now.
Right.
And I think that was one of the biggest ones. I was like, why not now? I don't have a mentor where I am. Right. And I don't have as much of a mentor or somebody that signed up to be my mentor.
Right.
Because I don't want to speak ill of her. She was lovely. Like no complaints there. But I was like, why not? This opportunity's here. We're in a small town. The price is right. The building's pretty. It has great bones. It just needs a facelift. Like, we have no other choice. Like, why not? I want to leave this job anyway. So why not? So that was part of it, but I'm a jumper. Clayton, on the other hand, crunched the numbers, realized it was a good price for what the practice was bringing in. Right. And then I think on top of all of that, the biggest thing was that I had a management team that was coming with me. So like the other long-term techs there had decided they were going to leave the practice right before or in a similar time as me. So I did not solicit. I waited until they were like, we're leaving. And then I pulled them aside after they'd put in their notice. And I was like, hey, do you have a plan? If you don't, this is what I'm doing and I will hire you. But I waited until, again, I did not ask anybody who was employed there. But it ended up being my whole management team slowly trickled from there to us, which I know isn't good blood. So I do feel, but I waited until they were ready to leave and then I offered them a spot. But I had a team that helped raise me as a baby vet because the techs there or the assistants there, they taught me so much. I mean, all of us can talk about that, right? Which is why y'all should never be crappy to your staff because they're the reason we survive. But like they raised me. And so I had so much faith in them and trust in them that knowing that I was moving to this practice with a management team like already in place, it was a lot easier. It was just, I had all the support I needed. We had all these meetings beforehand. We had a business model. We had a plan. We talked about the culture. We talked about all of these things, and that made it easier. So that's how I got over the fear, is that I had amazing people in my life that supported me, and that I could delegate to, and that we could lift up our strengths and find somebody else to manage our weaknesses. So that's how I got through that whole adventure. But boy, it's a scary process to spend that much money that you do not have, just pulling it out of thin air. Which goes to, what happens next, because anything like you and I are very similar in like an absurd number of ways. That's true.
And one of the things that I think scares the hell out of me is not growing. Is just being this same person until one day I die. Hate that idea. Right. And it's like, so then next, I mean, there's something, right? And like all of the fear that might be associated with whatever that next step is for you is then counteracted by the fear of not doing anything. So then what are the main fears moving forward for you?
Being stagnant, like you said, is for sure my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be 30 years into this career making okay money and only being able to affect a small group of people. I really want to jump to the next practice. I want to start expanding. We have amazing classmates. We have amazing new grads that are coming out. I would love to start expanding a little bit. Because I think that what we've got going on now, where we are a culture-centric practice, has been really good for everybody.
Yeah.
So, plus also, I want to start taking a step back medically a little bit. I love being a vet.
Right.
I just don't love having to deal with people being angry and like the emotional investment I constantly have in this situation. But I really do love medicine.
Right.
And so I want to move into I'd like to own multiple practices with people, though. That's the other thing. I don't want to do this alone.
Right.
I want to be involved with my friends, and I want my classmates to be involved, and I want us to all be successful. And I want to create an oasis, a veterinary oasis where we are, because it's a small area, but the people there don't have a lot of access to specialty hospitals. So I want to provide great veterinarians so that when you go to the specialist from us, it's either because they need advanced imaging,
Right.
a surgery that we've already told them they need, or they get there and the internists are like, crap. Like, I want to be, like when you are going to a specialist from us, I want the internist to feel sadness in their hearts. Like, gosh darn it, here they come.
And then like, it's a job that they actually should be doing.
Yes.
Yeah. I think elevating, because I mean, working in specialty hospitals, there's a ton of cases that come through that like didn't need to be there.
Right. Like, I'm not sending Demodex cases to the dermatologist. I'm not freaking doing it, you know?
Right.
And that's my goal. The frustration being that I've reached a point in my career now where we're sending out consults and then they respond. They're like, whoa, that's rough. You should probably refer that. And you're like, super.
And one thing that because you have a lot of, I mean, obviously experience over these past couple of years with staff, like support staff, and building a team that way. But like the veterinarians that or the ones that are working with you are people that you already knew, one of whom you're married to.
Yeah, that guy. I remember him. I think he's literally still asleep in your guest bedroom.
I love the idea. It's like what did you say on your sign? It said like Laura Bailey and Associates.
Oh yeah, I love to tell people that my husband is and Associates. We just haven't had a chance to buy a new sign, which is not cheap.
Right. But
we've only owned for 3 years. So.
And then like your best friend, like those are the doctors in your practice. So then there is this other thing of how does that turn into training new veterinarians? So, I mean, like in my opinion, that's exciting. I think that you'd be really good at it.
So I've had one extern who came and worked with us, who we loved.
Great.
Her like stepmom owns a practice, so she was going to do 2 years, but we've actually spoken to her. Like, if I expand, I'm going to offer her the job before anybody else.
Oh, cool.
And I really enjoyed it. Like, I would love to be part of an externship program.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
Do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that works. It's kind of an intimidating thing, but I do love veterinary medicine, and I get like super amped up, right? I've placed my first dorsal pedal catheter and I've told the whole freaking universe about it. I'm like, woohoo, look at this. Like, I still love it. I think it's so much fun if we just get rid of some of the bull crap. But I like the idea of meeting people. I think I'm a pretty good judge of character for the most part. I like meeting people and like being able to see the moment where my enthusiasm has like leaked into them.
Right.
And that's what I want. They're already here, right? That's one thing I think we need to be careful of as veterinarians. It's one thing when we're talking to these pre-vet students and we're like, hey, here are the facts. But what I think is really, really crappy is when a new veterinarian comes to these older vets, and you have to be honest with them, but they're already there. So don't freaking take their joy. Like, help guide them to not make the mistakes you made and to get into this field, make it better, and have a good time doing it, because everybody's going to benefit from that. Man, it pisses me off. I'm like, don't tell them that they've made a mistake, because it's already here, man. They're way too deep in debt for you to be saying that. You missed your chance. That window was 4 years ago. Now you need to lift them up and help them make this a better field, because obviously you didn't do it.
Yeah, because there are great things about this profession.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of people, like, you know, I talked to my buddy Al, who's been doing it forever, and he will do it until, like, even on his deathbed, he'll be, like, writing prescriptions or whatever, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it won't be like that, but he's a lot of fun.
But,
I like Al.
And he loves it. I mean, you know, there are a lot of people who just really love it. And I will say that, like, there's a lot of times when I enjoy what I'm doing, for sure. And I think that if we can show those pieces of the career a little bit more to people who are coming out and, like, stop talking to them about how, like, crappy the bad parts are. Yeah, I mean, the bad parts are crappy, like, for sure. But it's like, if we're all in this together and that's only a piece of the puzzle, then, you know, yeah, to your point, maybe we all survive. Maybe we all do make it better and actually do find some joy in this.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why I think new grads are the best. Like, these practices that are like, oh, well, we really want somebody with some experience. I'm like, oh, you mean somebody with bias and bad habits? Like, I think new grads are great. And they bring all this new education.
Yeah.
Like, my previous boss, man, he loved that I was like,
Yeah.
I remember being like, hey, if you get a diamond burr for like
Right.
$200,
Yeah.
he was very terrible with it at first, but we got him there. We
Yeah.
used him. I was like, easy. Easy.
Like,
Yeah.
going
Yeah. I was like,
through.
whoa. You shouldn't see blood. Like, calm down. Like, but we got him there.
Don't
It's
touch
fine.
the optic nerve.
Yeah. We got him. Like, you're not digging for gold. Like, just like gentle. But, I brought that in and he was like, oh, cool. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's really easy and you don't have to knock him out.
Right.
Which he didn't believe me. The first one was fully under anesthesia. I was like, cool. Now next time, just put some numbing drops and chill out and it's fine.
Right.
But I could bring things like that to the table and he thought it was so cool and interesting.
Yeah.
And like, we go to CEs, but we have 4 minutes in a year to go.
Right.
We're also like old and tired and not used to being in school. So we like try to listen, but it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then you like the CEs, I love to go and like dermatology is the best for it, where you like get totally different ideas in the same conference. Love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So we're trying, but I can't study all of the subjects this year.
Right.
I have to pick and choose. But these new grads, dude, they did that. They studied all of the subjects this year.
Yeah.
Why are we knocking the new grads, man?
Right.
Be a good mentor. Teach them things. Don't give them bad habits.
Right.
Like, learn from them, and it's going to be super.
Yeah. That's actually really interesting, isn't it? Because if you can empower them to speak up and empower them to, like, share the experience they have and validate that their experience is actually really useful to you and to the world, then perhaps you learn something. I mean, you'll definitely learn something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hire my first new grad. I'm so jazzed about the whole idea. And that's something I want in my facilities. Like, if we expand, I want to bring in new grads and like do all of those things and impact them to train the staff and learn from the staff and respect the staff. Like, there's so many things that can help form a good veterinarian.
Right.
And luckily for me, I'm surrounded by them. Like, my friends are great vets, and like, props to UT maybe, but also I think that I like, birds of a feather or whatever. Like,
Sure.
not that I'm a great vet, I'm trying, but like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm attracted to
trying, that's
those
the point, yeah.
personalities. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, I don't know. I can't wait. I'm really jazzed about the whole new grad thing. And I really hope I get the opportunity to work with some of them.
Right.
Because I can give them a lot of things that they're not learning, like empirical antibiotic use, carefully, but we have to.
Right.
Right? Like, oh, I remember my first freaking skin infection. Like, did the slide, cocci all over it. I'm like, this is probably staph. And then I'm like, and I remember looking at one of the techs. I think
Yeah.
it's one of the ones that works for me now. I'm like, resistance. And I was like, hey, what do the other doctors usually grab for this? I don't have a culture, right? Soda has $4. I'm like, hey, what do they usually grab? And they were amazing to me. They're like, go with the cephalexin. I was like, okay, cool. Got him. Like,
Yeah.
and those kind of things you don't learn in vet school. And it's not their fault, but also it's totally their fault, right? Like, ivory tower is so important and it's great for us to know that, but like, it is so impractical sometimes. And it's like, it's always like the wild, wild west when you live out in these places where you don't have the finances or the opportunity to refer. And you can't just be like, well, guess we're not going to do anything. Like, sorry, your dog's going to die. Or you're like, you know what? Okay, here's how we're going to manage this. And I can teach that. I can teach how to prioritize testing and how to remember that when you're making your estimates, you need to decide what you think. At least try to guess what you think's what's wrong and put that on there, the treatment. Because if you spend every penny on diagnostics and they can't afford to treat, you didn't do anything. You were just serving yourself trying to find an answer. And so nobody taught us that. I mean, I know you do it all the time in the ER. Like, so, I mean, that's where wisdom comes in, you know, but wisdom isn't greater than knowledge. It's just, you know, two sides to a coin, and you need both.
Yeah. I think that's wise.
Yeah, see, told you, because I'm old, I've got the wisdom. That's what the new grads are for, the knowledge.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, yeah, because you're right. I think that, like, as we grow more and more in this profession, we do lose a lot of knowledge. Like, the stuff that we know becomes older. A lot of the stuff, I mean, I try to think of things like, you know, citizen beak disease or whatever, and I'm like, I don't
try to think of that. That's gone.
But I just, like, don't know what all those things are anymore.
Yeah.
And so there's that fading effect too. But I do think that the way that I approach the field allows me to actually really enjoy it, and I think be successful in it. I think that I get a lot of good outcomes just by, but again, that's all through, you know, whatever the experience is, and then a point of view and a philosophy about how to approach the field. But you need all of it. And I think that that's where this whole team thing comes in.
Well, and I think that kind of, I think the other thing that we as veterinarians, especially GPs, so I'm coming just from the general practitioner standpoint, but I think that something else that we should do if you're in a good team in a multi-doctor hospital is stop trying to be a jack of all trades.
Right.
And start, and you know, we talked about this also yesterday, is start focusing on some of your strengths. Like in my hospital, the 3 doctors have some like very distinct skill sets. Like Clayton does the exotics. He's awesome at neurology, like so good at it, and pretty good at ortho. Michael does all of our dentistry. He does our main surgeries, and he is really good at ortho as well. I hate dentistry. Won't do it. I just won't. I hate ortho. Like I'm so bad at it. I didn't get the neuro rotation, so like I'm not great at that. I tried, but you can't do every rotation. I'm really good at endocrinology though, and I love it. Like I'm a total sadist. Like I freaking think it's awesome how weird and interesting. Oh, and I can smell an endocrine disease. I can walk in and be like, oh, you got some Cushing's? Like I love it. I like behavior, and I like internal medicine. Like I love a good mystery illness if I have time to work it up. The guys hate it. So we've gotten to where not only do we consult on everything, we look at each other's radiographs, we look at eyes because everybody's bad at them, you know, like we all listen to the heart murmur. But our reception staff has been trained, if they get a call and the client's not like, I want to see Dr. Bailey, to try to filter. Like if it's hey, I think my dog needs a dental, like they put it with Z. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to drag him into the room. And then if they like have a behavior thing, the guys are like, do not put that trash on me. And like, the staff, we're getting better and better with our CSRs in filtering these. And so like, and I'm pretty good at dermatology. That's the other one I work on. So like the other day I was like, and I didn't know they were doing this. We've talked to them about it, but I didn't know I was the derm person until we had, so like we have our staff fill out like their personal reviews at their like yearly, and at 90 days, they're like first 90 days. So one of my CSRs, we asked, like, how do you choose where to put an appointment? What we were looking for is, like, whoever, like, has been working on it, like, try to keep some continuity of care. She put, based on their strengths, and she put Dr. Bailey, dermatology. And I was like, oh. So I didn't know that I had become that person. But, like, a few weeks before, I'd had, like, our day. I was like, man, I have done nothing but skin today. Now I know why. Now I'm like, oh, you all have decided that's my thing. Super. So, like, I picked the really annoying chronic diseases. Apparently, that's what I'm into.
Exactly.
Well, the other guys are like, all right, we fixed it. Well, maybe that's like a man versus woman thing. I don't know. But I think that general practice, what a silly idea. But also, I don't want to specialize. Like we go into GP either because we know that specialty stuff sucks. Sorry, residencies are not for me. or because we do have like a generalized interest, but it doesn't mean we don't have strengths.
Right.
And my mental health has gone up because I'm not having to feel insecure doing things that aren't, one, either I don't like, or two, I'm not very good at.
Right.
And so we shifted things in our practice to allow for that. You know, Z wants to do surgery. So he does surgery 4 days a week now, or 3 of his 4 days. We're pushing for a fourth.
Wow.
Because that's what he likes.
Yeah, sure.
So why not let him do it?
Right.
You know, and so that has really helped with mental health in our hospital as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
If you can do it.
Yeah, if you can. I mean, it's nice to have a good team, and especially if you have like that kind of dynamic. Because, you know, one of the things is like, well, then how do you fight over production and blah, blah, blah.
And for us,
like,
it's easy, right? None of us are on production.
Right. Oh, yeah. I like that model, by
Me
the
too.
way. Especially, I mean, if you were to do like a profit sharing type of thing where like if the practice does well, like you do well. But like, my mental health was never worse than when I was on production.
Well, and I think a lot of people have said that because you're afraid to take your time off, and it only works. It doesn't work in every practice, right? Like if you're working with jerks who are going to be lazy and case dodge,
right.
then it doesn't work. But if you are in a profit sharing model, which is what we're pushing towards, and also we want our profit sharing to include our staff, like that's the eventual model I'm striving for, then you just pick the stuff that you're most efficient or are best at. And
Right. Yeah, then the practice does better.
the whole practice does better. Everybody's happier, and your patients are getting better care.
I will tell you, it takes me a long time to do a lac repair. I'm like too particular with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just don't really like surgery that much.
So why should you have to do
Right.
surgery?
Yeah. Like if I was and some people love it. They're like, get me off the floor for, an hour while I deal with
I love
this. I'm like,
surgery. Yeah, it's
whatever.
great.
Like I'll work up the ridiculous cases. Like give me a DKA. Like I'm fine, but yeah, I like that idea.
So what is when you think about your future, obviously it looks a little different now that you're like
Right.
having a human child, but
Yeah, I mean a little. Yeah.
so like when you okay, so let me phrase it by so like when I think about my future, I have this image in my mind that's my ultimate goal, and it's a personal goal. It's not a career goal. And I am spending my career trying to make that goal a reality, essentially. Like, how can I get there? Like, my goal is to eventually buy a piece of property on the water because I want to dock and I want to be able to fish with no bra on. Like, that's how I know I've arrived. Like, that's what I'm striving for, is like, I want to be able to like carry a bottle of wine, no bra on, and like wander down to my dock where nobody's going to judge that look, and like dangle my feet and like drink wine from the bottle and like fish with no bra on. Like, that is for me, like when I reach that moment, and also have like money to travel and such. But that's like it.
Right.
Yeah. That's my I've arrived. Like, what's your I've arrived?
I don't know. I feel like my entire life has been... So previously it's been about like, how do I survive in this moment? For me now, it's more about what am I doing right now that I'm connecting to, that like are in line with my values, that are, it's like, it's more about the at this moment, have I arrived constantly?
It's probably a healthier way to look at it. Realistically.
Maybe. I mean, because I kept getting frustrated at, these sort of like, oh, well, I'm just gonna like go ahead and do this. And then, like, yes, these things are important to me. But I'll do this for like a year because it's important for me to accomplish this goal. And then I get to that year, and then it's like, it's another year that's gone by where I didn't write a song, or I didn't, sit down to write something, or, whatever, where I feel more disconnected from literature, or I haven't looked at a piece of art in a while, or whatever. And it's like, I did get to a point where I'm like, I can't keep waking up like this. I can't keep having this exact same thought of wanting to be more involved in something. So for that reason, I don't know if I know the answer to that. The other thing is that I've learned in my life that whatever it is that I think is going to happen definitely doesn't happen. And it's more the devastation that is associated with the promise of something that gets me more than actually, the devastation of the event. So like when Melissa and I split, for example, it wasn't necessarily, I mean, yes, of course, like, the falling apart of that relationship, like it's hard to have a relationship that falls apart. But it was more about the promise of some future that we had envisioned. Like not going to own a practice together. We're not going to have, you know, like land. We're not going to have this like
Right.
really close family and, you know, whatever, all these things. And so it's all of that that then made everything else worse. And in the meantime, while I was working for that, I let everything else that was important to me disappear. So I don't know.
I mean, that's probably a healthier way, right? Like living in the moment and enjoying the moment, at least doing that. If something happens to block your goal, then you
Right.
haven't been wasting your time. And so, I mean, there's value in that.
There is. The hard part is then you can still wake up every day and be in the exact same spot.
Yeah,
Without a
true.
North
It's
Star,
without
right?
a North Star.
Yeah. So, you know, I do have these ideas of like, I want to create certain things. Like, I think it would be really fun to create like kids' educational songs surrounding like pathophysiology, or, you know, I think chemistry is still super fun, and it would be fun to create that type of media. I think this is a fun thing that I'm doing right now. And I think that if I can build these things out and surround myself in this world of being creative, maybe that's what it looks like to me. Maybe that's my, you know, bra off at the end of the dock, is being.
You should try it though. 10 out of 10.
As a side note, the only time I punched anybody ever was in high school. It was a guy named Armin. He was a friend of mine, and he reached out and he grabbed my breast, because I've always been a little, you know, rotundo, as like my everybody was always
What
quick
an
to point
interesting
out.
thing that you're electing to share. This is fascinating.
He reached out, he grabbed my breast, and I like grabbed his arm. I pulled him into me, and I punched him with the other arm. So as I pulled him in with one, I punched him with the other right in the sternum. And he went down, and I felt pretty good about that. But
Touch my boobs.
yeah, my boobs are off limit.
I've definitely punched people for touching my boobs before. So, I mean, hey,
Sure.
look, another thing we have in common.
Yeah, that's the only time I've ever done it. But yeah, so my like, you know, bra off at the end of the dock is probably doing something where every day I feel like I'm doing something creative, with other people.
That should be the title of our self-help book.
Every day I'm doing something creative
No,
with other
bra
people.
off at the end of the dock.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what I love. I went to my buddy, he like owned a company, and he was in downtown San Francisco, and they had a floor. Like you go, you know, these elevators that go up and it opens up and it's just, you're in the office now. And it was a whole floor, and you know,
like working for
people
Google.
working, and I mean, he was working, I forget. I mean, but he owned whatever this company was. And I'm like, this is really cool. I love the idea of being able to, you know, inspire like all these people working on some project together. I think it'd be really cool to have like, you know, either this children's thing or this rock opera thing that's on like the board behind me, or, you know, whatever it is, like these types of projects where just a bunch of us are sitting and working together on this and moving together.
Yeah, that was like one of the best parts of vet school, right? That's what we were doing.
Exactly. That's how I survived. I mean, truly how I survived clinics was, one, coming off of the high of like actually creating that project. And then two, having this roast video at the end of it. Once that started happening, that helped me get through the rest of it.
Engages that other part of you.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe that's what it looks like. I mean, I do have these other pieces of like, I think it would be nice to have land with a house of like a certain size that, you know, and not have to worry so much about like finances every day. Not having
Right.
to like think about those types of things. It would be nice to be able to travel. It would be nice to have, I mean, there's like certain types of things. I think it would be really cool to set up different ways for us to accomplish veterinary medicine, like just to like set up clinics that just have some like different models associated with it to try some different stuff out.
Well, and also like, well, first off, that was a much better answer than bra off at the end of the dock. But two, I think that that's a really interesting thing that you and I have in a lot of conversations explored more. But it's this idea that not just that there's a perfect model to do a clinic at, but that we're all different. So if we have different models, then you find the one that fits you. You
Right.
know, like my model.
Right.
I talked to a classmate recently, hates my model,
Sure.
hates the transparency, hates the way I do
Right,
that. Like
right.
that's not their vibe. I would not thrive in his environment and he would not thrive in mine.
Right.
Does it mean one of us is right or wrong?
Yeah.
Probably not.
I think that like, yes, I think that that speaks to values. Like that speaks to we're all different people. Like being a veterinarian is many different things.
Yeah. Stop putting us in a mold, man.
Right. Yeah. So to think that we're some, yeah, man, that Jello, man.
In Colorado, man.
But like to this idea that we are going to be, you know, whatever the prototypical veterinarian, that stock image of the veterinarian in the white coat that's on every website, that we're not that.
Yeah. This is from like the most, like I'm the prototype.
Right.
I'm the white middle-class American who like as a child was like, I love puppies.
Right.
And then I just like did 4 years of undergrad, no summer school.
Right.
Boom, boom, pow, gets accepted into her state vet school immediately.
Yeah.
Never has to leave her home state. I'm like, literally, I can't believe you asked me to do this. I'm so boring. My origin story. But, you know, and this is coming from me. I should have followed a mold. And then I was like, oh, that sucks. I don't want to do that.
Right.
That's not for me. I have my own likes and things. And
you had to create a business in order to do that, which is why people create businesses.
Yeah.
But also, like to your point, it would be nice if you can find there's options for you where you don't have to necessarily take on the burden of ownership. While there are great benefits, of course, as well. But like, if that's not your thing, like that has to be okay as well.
right. So what if you were a new grad and you came and applied and I owned 4 practices, you know, let's say, or you and I have owned a variety of practices. Like, okay, super nice to meet you. We're going to let you like try some shifts at each of these hospitals.
Yes.
Now at hospital A, this is a production-based hospital. It's walk-ins only. And, you know, here's how that works. At B, this is a more of a specialized practice. A lot of our new grads don't start here, but end up here. Right. And what you'll do is you'll find what you're best at. And we'll try to find you a position there where that's more your focus. You're not a specialist, but we're going to have a higher concentration of cardiac cases for you because you have a passion for that. Right. You know, or like this practice is, you know, vaccines only, or all of your cases are seen by all the doctors. Like you guys, it's all round table. Everything you do comes here and you work as a group to find the answer. It's not the fastest. They pay extra for this service. A lot of times the other hospitals refer here, but this is how that model works. You're going to try each of them and we're going to find the one that fits best for you. Like, why can't medicine be like that?
Or the one where it's like, hey, you show up, the techs are going to do everything and you're just going to talk to the client because we know that we're never going to get you out of a room.
Yeah. Tim Pearson, if you're out there, we just described your perfect practice. You know?
Yeah.
But like that, why not?
Yeah.
Why do we have to all do the same freaking thing? It's not working.
I think that ultimately that does require us to do it. Because again, I mean, there is a financial incentive to work with, like, again, corporates are great for the reasons that corporates exist. And I am glad that they exist. I think that there's like a lot of benefit that they provide to the profession.
Like buying practices from us so we can retire.
Eventually they are our exit strategy. No, but I think that they like create, you know, certain baselines and certain expectations, and they can create, well, anyway, whatever. There's benefits for corporate practices, but I also think that you're not going to be able to find that kind of thing in something that is designed to, like, the way that it works the most efficiently is that that all these practices effectively function the same. So it requires then that solo practitioners, or rather, you know, small business owners go out and start creating these things. You have to. I mean,
yeah. And we know there's money to be made in it. And so you do some profit sharing across the board so that, yeah, this one practice, it takes them a little longer, but they require fewer techs, and they take care of the shit that the rest of us don't have time or don't really want to deal with. There's value in that. And, you know, we know this. Not all value is financial. Right. And I think that there's value medically for our patients who, I think in a lot of this, we don't always talk about, you know, like how can we also help these poor clients and these poor patients who are so sick and we don't have time, or we're putting 15-minute appointment slots in and you know, you're not doing your best medicine. Don't lie to me, you know, come on.
Right.
Or at least you're not educating enough.
Yeah.
Even if your staff does a good job. So
I will say this is why, like, there are some places or people that exist now. I forget the name of the society. I'll try to look it up later. But there's like mentorship groups where it's like, if you want to start a business, they help you try to figure that out. And then you get to try to figure out how to make it your thing.
Yeah.
My buddy Seth, and again, I don't know enough about this to like speak intelligently on it, but he was is a part of a group of people that's what they do. They like talk about, certain aspects of what small business ownership is going to look like. Then they talk about like, oh, like here, this is an architect that like we tend to work with or whatever. And then they think about like the possibilities of the practice that they want to design. And then as a result, they get to be in the practice that they actually want to own.
yeah.
I mean, and there are support structures for that. So like people do exist out there. There's people who are doing, what is it? It's like co-op type models to increase buying power, right? Where so you get like 30, 50 hospitals that are not related to one another, but that have all sort of agreed.
Those buying groups, that's a whole thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like things like that. We're trying to find ways to make it possible. And because of those people who are trying to find ways to make it possible, it becomes possible. And if we just sit here and talk about it and record it, I mean, like, that's not enough.
No, it's not enough.
Right.
And you and I are notorious for this. So
Right, exactly.
how do one of my New Year's resolutions was when I had an idea that I felt passionate about, to create like at least a few actionable items
Right.
within that idea. Because with my staff, I'm bad to be like, oh, we need to fix this. And I'm floating around in my
Right.
flowy skirt.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
like, it's like pull from like the ethereal and like be like, okay, what are the actionable items here
Right.
to make this? Because once you're started, once you've stepped onto that path, like you're going, it's like getting on the thing at the airport. Once you're on it, you're on it. You're
Right.
moving on that little, what is
Yeah.
that called?
Moving walkway.
Okay, yeah. So you're on the moving walkway. But that I'm trying really hard to start making that a goal for myself.
Right.
And it does, and in all walks of my life, So write down the 3 things that will get you started on it, and like just focus on those 3 things. Because once
Yeah.
you're started, it's a lot easier.
There's this thing that I was doing for a while to speak to that, where it's like, sit down, write the things out, create your like action steps. But then like at the beginning of the week, you would write out, a certain number of goals. And I still actually do this to some extent, but you'd write out like whatever those steps were in that plan. Yeah. And then at night every day, you'd go back through and like reflect back on the day. Like, what did I accomplish? And, what didn't I? And like, what happened? There was a thing called the Monk Manual, which I used for a little while to like kind of help encourage that. And I've distilled out some of those pieces. But honestly, like that's the way that that's the only way that I've created momentum on projects. I have to, when I wrote the book, right, it was like, well, I have to sit down and write something. And it was like, whatever, 2,000 words a day or whatever. And it was like, I have to do this. And then at some point I'll be at some other place. And then that other place, then I can figure out what to do from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But without the actionable steps, it just becomes write book, which is you can't accomplish that task.
Yeah, because trying to get from step A to Z feels really intimidating.
Yeah.
But when you're looking from A to B, it's very manageable.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to function to get these big goals done.
Yeah.
Like when I got scolded by my practice manager for being a person,
Right.
I was like, okay, I need to leave. That was step 1. All right, I made that decision. Step 2, I was like, I heard about this practice. I'm just going to reach out.
Right.
And once that started, man, it was,
Yeah.
there we were.
Yeah.
We were on the moving walkway
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I now know the name for.
Yeah.
I was like, horizontal elevator.
But I think that, there's times where it's like you have to do that, where you set up and say, these are the next steps that I'm going to do. And then there's times on the other end of it where you have to sit down and say, what have I done? What did I want to do? And how did I miss?
Yeah.
And then it's figuring out what the difference is there that then helps inform like whatever comes next. Like I'm a part of a period right now where I know that I'm like, this period isn't intentional. I'm working period, because what comes next is a baby. And there are certain like music projects that are absolutely on the docket. And so it's like, great, I'm doing these steps. And then once I get back into that, then, I go back into these are the tasks for the week. This is what I'm going to accomplish.
We do it in the practice. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
We're going to fix these 3 things in 6 months.
Right.
These are the 2 pieces of equipment we're going to buy in 3 months.
Yeah.
And that's it. And if you go, it's important to have a big goal, but yeah, man, you can drown in the ideas and the paralyzing fear of these ideas. And so
I guess the thing is like to break down the problem and then figure out how you are going to approach that problem. So in this case, it's like, what about veterinary medicine, or what about opening clinics, or creating a different type of clinic for everybody, or creating some variety, or whatever? Like, what about that general problem are you going to decide to focus on? And then what are your first steps on that?
Yeah, because you can't fix it all.
No. But all you can do is this.
Yeah, how can you create at least one thing right now that will make it better for some people?
Right.
My first step was to create a good culture for the 20 people that work for me.
Yeah.
That was step 1. But now I'm ready for step 2.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready to expand that and help veterinarians find some joy in this. And also, we all make veterinarians better.
Yeah.
I think that compassion fatigue, not only does it lead to mental health issues, but it makes us shitty doctors. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And that's not fair.
Right.
These poor animals have no idea who they're going to see. Their owners are idiots. And like, here we are
Right.
not giving a shit because we're too tired. That's not fair either.
Yeah.
And we're doing a disservice by allowing our field to get to this terrible mental health place by our faults and others. We are not doing good enough medicine anymore, I think, in a lot of places. And you see it all the time. We've worked for doctors who are experiencing that. We've worked next to doctors who are so tired and so beat down that if a client's like, I don't believe in heartworms, they're like, fine, fuck it. But I catch myself doing it. I'm like, no. I was like, okay, well, here's what they look like.
Yeah.
So now you have to believe in them. Sometimes you can't get through, but sometimes I don't want to have the conversation. I just don't freaking care. And that's not fair.
Yeah.
And so I think that we have to set ourselves up to be the best versions of ourselves for our mental health, but also for our patients.
Yeah. Yeah. The doctor who is able to do that is the one that shows up the next day. Mm-hmm. And therefore, can then provide medical care. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like if we push ourselves out of this industry or fail to show up even when we're there, like we are doing a disservice to everyone involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be mean to our staff, and then our staff's going to be upset, and then they're going to be distracted and draw up the wrong medication.
Yeah.
Like we all got into this, at least in some part, because we give a shit about our patients, right? Like that's like one of the few things most of us can kind of agree on.
Yeah.
So all of these other things that we're allowing to affect us, not allowing to affect us, because of course they're going to affect us, but all these things that we're not doing things to correct are going to trickle down and affect our patients. So if nothing else, that should be a fire starter for us to do something about this field.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. And break. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes the veterinarian that needs to close on a Wednesday, like they have to close that Wednesday in order to show up next Monday.
Sometimes you have to do it, man.
Yeah.
Protect yourself.
Well, let's do it. I get invigorated by this because it's like, and this is why I also like new grads and young people and whatever, but just people who are like, you know what, let's do it. Because that's the thing. Where do I see life going? I don't want to continue. I want to live this life embracing this idea that like these things are possible. Anything is possible. It's just a matter of the work that you're willing to put in or able to put in. And maybe I've been, more reflective on like my time on this earth as I get a little bit older, or maybe, as like this kid starts to become
the whelp
more
is
and more
about to happen.
Right. Yeah. Like Lindsay is eminently whelping.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me to think we have one shot at all of this, and what, we're going to be afraid to do something? We're going to stop ourselves from doing something because of...
Right?
Because of what?
And on top of that, veterinary medicine financially, you're not going to make a lot of money, but you're probably not going to go broke, right? Like banks want to bet on us.
Right.
So let them,
Right.
create the things that you want. Or if you don't want to be an owner, then you're probably the type of person who's friends with a big mouth like you or I.
Nice.
So come talk to us.
Interesting.
Right? Our
Yeah.
introverts hang out with the extroverts. It's how we balance each other. So go and ask them, be like, hey, I want to do this. I have no desire to be in charge of it.
Right.
You seem like the type.
Right.
Do it.
I
Reach
will
out
say-
to your classmates.
I mean, legitimately, that's the thing when it comes to all these like different business ideas. I just want one that somebody else is excited about to do with me. And yeah, I mean, what a great idea. It's like you don't have to be the one who wants to do every bit of it for you to inspire the beginning of something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can have great ideas and give them to people like us. We're ready. We're literally chomping at the bit to spend some of that money we don't have and open a new business and be overly involved in other people's lives, right? Like you and I thrive on that. But we have so many friends that we run around with that are ready to support us, but don't really want to jump off that cliff with us, right? They'll hold the rope and let us go down, and that's fine.
Right.
I need somebody to hold the rope.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can affect change without having to be a giant aggressive personality. Like you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, we can all figure out. We can all do something in our own way, in whatever that way is. And I love the idea of like finding the people who are more interested in like, whatever pieces are going to make it actually happen, the mechanisms of it.
Yeah. But those people don't like to be alone, right?
Exactly.
Like we're a personality type. We don't want to be alone. We want people to amp us up.
It's the same reason that we want to support these people in doing these things.
Yeah.
Like that's why what I like about teaching is I love like that growth that happens. I love that like excitement and like, the idea of supporting somebody else in some business that they're really invested in, like in whatever way I can, is always really fun to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that same, it's that same personality flaw that then allows.
It absolutely is. That's why you balance each other.
Yeah.
It's great. Clayton did it.
Yeah.
He didn't want to open a practice by himself.
Right.
But I bet you anything he doesn't regret it.
Right.
Because we had me to be the aggressor.
Right.
And it worked great.
Yeah.
I deal with all the reps because I'm a lot. And Clayton handles all the boring stuff that I don't care about, but probably should because money matters. And like, it's perfect. So find your Clayton, or Clayton's out there, find your Laura and your Matt. It's okay to not, this is another thing. Ready? Veterinary flaw. We don't have to be everything.
Right.
Stop trying because you're going to suck at some of it, right? Be the best at the things you're the best at and like pair off well.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. Because where the joys lies, I think also in doing something with somebody, it's the company that we keep makes our heart continue to beat.
Oh, most assuredly.
All right, everybody. Find your thing, man. I'm excited. God, I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Thank you for joining me in doing this, by the way.
Oh, it's so fun to talk.
Yeah, it always is. Yeah, and we get to do it in person, and even though like the wind is trying to like blow the house away or whatever.
And that you didn't provide mimosas, but
I
that's
didn't,
fine.
not this time. Coffee and water. That's all you get.
Coffee and water, yeah.
It also puts a time limit because then you have to go to the bathroom at some point.
That's so true, though.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's so fun.
And there you have it, my conversation with Laura Bailey. We get into some pretty good stuff, and I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed talking and having this, conversation. So just, sitting in chairs with an old friend and chatting. But it was really nice going back and listening to it again. I think that, I recorded it back in April, and it's at the end of June now. And so, I forgot a lot of those things that we had talked about. And some of them, I think, are great ideas. Some of there's like little bits of wisdom that kind of, Laura pops out or, whatever. I mean, that can be garnered from this. And I was like, oh yeah. So it was really good. I'm going to create another meanderings episode surrounding this as well. There's no way for me to encapsulate everything. I feel like we touched on so much. But I will say this, is that if you have any questions or comments or, need advice, not that I'm necessarily the guy who's in the position to give that, but if you need anything, my contact information is on the website. Feel free to shoot me an email at any time. Yeah, I don't know. We're all just going through this, and we don't have to be going through it alone. Yeah, if you need anything, just let me know. And also comments, questions, concerns, all that kind of stuff. Anything you guys want to hear on this, this podcast, I'm open. I'm open to suggestions. With that said, thank you all for listening. Thank you for those who have shared, and we are up on YouTube now. Although this episode, is just audio, so that's not exciting. but we're on YouTube and anywhere you can get your podcasts. And I'm actually going to be at the AVMA convention here in a couple of weeks with a booth. For what? I don't know. But if you're there, come by and say hi. So with that, thank you again. And may all your favorite stuffed animals from childhood retain their little button eyeballs. That's terrible. Retain their button eyeballs. May all your stuffed animals from childhood provide you with great memories. Why button eyeballs? Why would they fall out? And also, how creepy. Just these enucleated little teddy bears just sitting around the room. Button eyeballs. What is wrong with you?